The transport ship moved slowly through space toward Nexus Station. Inside the passenger area, Dae-ho Kim looked out the small window at the strange red and purple colors of this part of space. He had never seen anything like it before. The stars here looked different from the ones back on Earth. Everything seemed bigger and more colorful. Dae-ho was 34 years old and worked as an engineer. He was good at fixing machines and understanding how things worked. Back on Earth, he had spent many years learning about engines and computers. Now he was taking his family to live in space. This was something he never thought would happen when he was young. Next to him sat his wife Mirai. She was 31 and had worked as a teacher on Earth. She held their son Jinho close to her. The boy was only 8 years old. This was his first time leaving Earth. His eyes were wide as he pressed his face against the window to see the stars. "Look, Papa," Jinho said in a quiet voice. "The stars are so many colors here." Dae-ho smiled and put his hand on his son's head. "Yes, son. This is a very different place from home, but we will have a good life here." Mirai looked worried. She had been quiet for most of the trip. Moving to space was scary for her. She did not know what to expect. On Earth, humans were the only intelligent beings. But where they were going, there would be many different kinds of alien creatures. "Will the aliens be nice to us?" Mirai asked her husband quietly. Dae-ho squeezed her hand. "The Federation accepted us as members 30 years ago. They need human workers. We will be fine." The ship captain's voice came over the speaker system. "We are now approaching Nexus Station. All passengers prepare for docking. Welcome to your new home." Through the window they could see the space station getting bigger and bigger. It was huge, much bigger than anything humans had ever built. The station looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly in space. There were lights everywhere and ships moving in and out like busy insects. Jinho gasped. "It's so big, Papa." "Yes, it is," Dae-ho said. "Thousands of beings live and work there. And now we will too." Other human families were on the ship with them. Dae-ho could hear parents talking to their children in nervous voices. Everyone was excited but also scared. Moving to live with aliens was still very new for humans. Only a few thousand humans lived outside Earth's solar system. The ship docked with a loud sound of metal touching metal. Then there was silence except for the air circulation system. The captain's voice came again. "Docking complete. Please gather your belongings and prepare for immigration processing." Dae-ho picked up their 2 bags. They could not bring much with them. The cost of shipping things from Earth was too high. They would have to buy most things they needed on the station. The family walked through the ship's corridors with the other passengers. Everyone moved slowly toward the exit. When the doors opened, they got their first look at Nexus Station. The docking bay was enormous. The ceiling was so high that Jinho had to lean his head back to see the top. Strange machines moved cargo containers around. The air smelled different than Earth air. It was clean but had a metallic taste. But what really caught their attention were the aliens. Dae-ho had seen pictures and videos before, but seeing them in person was very different. They were tall, thin beings with blue skin and 4 arms. There were short, round creatures covered in fur. And there were others that looked like giant insects walking on 2 legs. The most impressive aliens were the guards. They were called Zilani, and they were huge. Each one was almost 8 feet tall and covered in hard armor that looked like it grew from their skin. The armor was greenish-gray and had sharp edges. Their heads looked like those of large lizards, but with bigger brains. Their eyes were yellow and seemed to look right through people. "Stay close," Dae-ho whispered to his family. They joined a line of other new arrivals waiting for immigration processing. The line moved slowly. Each family had to show their papers and answer questions. The Zilani guards watched everyone carefully. They did not smile or talk unless they had to. When it was their turn, a Zilani officer looked at their documents. His name tag said Officer Drex. He was even bigger up close. His armor made quiet clicking sounds when he moved. "Dae-ho Kim, engineer assigned to Maintenance Bay 7, the alien said in a deep voice. His English was good but sounded strange. "Wife Mirai Kim, assigned to Hydroponics section. Son Jinho Kim, enrolled in Education District." "Yes, sir," Dae-ho said politely. Officer Drex looked at them for a long moment. His yellow eyes seemed to study them like they were interesting insects. "Humans," he said, but not in a friendly way. "New species. Still learning how things work here." "We will work hard and follow all rules," Dae-ho said. "Yes, you will," Officer Drex said. Because if you do not, you will be sent back to your little planet. We have been running this station for 200 years. We know what we are doing. Humans are here because we allow it. Remember that? Deho felt his face get hot, but he did not say anything. He could feel Mirai's hand squeeze his arm. They needed this job and this chance for a better life. Officer Drek stamped their papers and handed them back. Report to your assignments tomorrow morning. Your living quarters are in Section C, Level 12. A guide will show you the way. They collected their bags and followed a small alien guide through the station corridors. The hallways were wide and well lit. Everything was built much bigger than things on Earth because some aliens were very large. They passed many different areas. There were shops selling strange foods and items. There were restaurants with aliens eating things that looked nothing like Earth food. There were offices and work areas where different species worked together. Their new home was a small apartment with 3 rooms. It was simple but clean. The furniture was designed to work for different kinds of beings, so it could be adjusted for humans. There was a window that looked out at space and the other parts of the station. "This is our new home," Deho said as they set down their bags. Jinho ran to the window and looked out. "Papa, I can see Earth from here." Deho looked out the window too, but he could not see their home planet. It was too far away. He put his arm around his son's shoulders. "We will make this place our home now, Jinho. We will build a good life here." But as he said those words, Deho thought about Officer Drex and the way he had looked at them. He wondered if humans would really be welcome here, or if they would always be seen as visitors who could be sent away at any time. 3 months had passed since the Kim family arrived at Nexus Station. Deho had gotten used to his work in the maintenance bay. Every day he fixed the engines of the big Starfighter ships. These ships were much more advanced than anything humans had built. The engines used energy sources that Earth scientists were still trying to understand. Deho was good at his job. He learned quickly and never made mistakes. The other human workers respected him. Even some of the alien engineers had started to ask for his help with difficult problems. But the Zilani supervisors did not seem to care about his good work. His boss was a Zilani named Captain Vorthak. He was the head of station security and also controlled the maintenance operations. Captain Vorthak was older than Officer Drex and even more serious. His armor was darker and had more decorations on it. These decorations showed that he had been a warrior for many years. Captain Vorthak did not like humans. He made this clear in many small ways. When human workers asked questions, he would sigh loudly and act like they were wasting his time. When they did good work, he never said anything positive. But when they made even tiny mistakes, he would write reports about it. "Human methods are sloppy," Captain Vorthak often said to other Zilani officers. "They do not understand precision like we do." Deho heard these comments but tried not to let them bother him. He needed this job for his family. Every month he sent money back to Earth to help his parents. This job paid much more than any work he could find on Earth. At home things were also difficult, but in different ways. Mirai had found work in the hydroponics bay where they grew food for the station. She worked with plants and vegetables that came from many different worlds. Some of the plants were beautiful with bright colors and strange shapes. Others smelled awful or had to be handled very carefully. The supervisor in hydroponics was not Zilani. She was from a species called the Altani. They looked like tall, thin humans but with silver skin and large black eyes. The Altani woman's name was Supervisor Yental. She was not mean to humans like the Zilani were, but she was not friendly either. Humans learn slowly, Supervisor Yental told Mirai on her first day. But you work hard. That is something. Mirai did work hard. She studied the care instructions for each plant species. She learned which nutrients each type needed. She became very good at helping the plants grow healthy and strong. But like her husband, she noticed that her good work was never praised. The hardest part was for young Jinho. He attended school in the education district with children from many different species. The school was big and bright with learning rooms designed for different kinds of beings. Some students breathed different air, so there were special areas with different atmospheres. Jinho was a smart boy and learned quickly. He made friends with some of the other children. His best friend was a young Zilani named Krex. Krex was the son of one of Captain Vorthak's officers. The two boys played together during breaks and helped each other with their studies. But some of the adult Zilani did not like seeing their children play with humans. They thought humans were a lower form of life. They worried that their children might learn bad habits from human kids. One day, Krex's father, Sergeant Morak, came to pick up his son from school. He saw Krex playing with Jinho and became angry. "Krex, come here now," Sergeant Morak said in a loud voice. "Stop playing with that human child." Krex looked confused. "But Father, Jinho is my friend. He is very smart and kind." "Humans are not suitable friends for Zilani children," his father said. "They are primitive beings. You should not spend time with them." Other alien parents heard this conversation. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable but did not say anything. Jinho heard the words too. He did not understand all of what Sergeant Morak said, but he knew it was not good. That night at dinner, Jinho asked his parents about what had happened. "Papa, why did Krex's father say humans are primitive?" Jinho asked. "What does that mean?" Daiho and Mirai looked at each other. They had hoped their son would not face this kind of treatment so young. Some aliens think they are better than humans because they have been in space longer. Daiho explained carefully, but that does not make them better people. What matters is how you treat others and how hard you work. "Will Krex still be my friend?" Jinho asked. "I hope so," Mirai said. Good friends do not stop caring about each other because of what other people say. But things got worse over the next few weeks. Sergeant Morak and other Zilani parents complained to the school about human children. They said humans were a bad influence on their kids. They wanted separate classes for different species. The school principal was a wise old alien from a species called the Cortani. They looked like large, friendly bears but were very intelligent. Principal Weston had been running schools for 50 years and had seen many different species learn to work together. Separation is not the answer, Principal Weston told the complaining parents. Children learn better when they interact with different kinds of beings. This helps them understand the galaxy they will live in as adults. But the complaints continued. Some Zilani parents said they would take their children out of the school if changes were not made. Since Zilani families were some of the most important on the station, their threats carried weight. One day, Captain Vorthak came to inspect Daiho's work area. This was unusual because maintenance was not normally part of his duties. But as head of station security, he could inspect any area he wanted. Daiho had just finished repairing a complex engine component. The work had taken him 6 hours and required very precise adjustments. The engine was now running better than before. He was proud of his work. Captain Vorthak examined the engine carefully. He used diagnostic tools to check every part of Daiho's repair. Everything was perfect. The engine was working exactly as it should, but Captain Vorthak was not satisfied. "This repair uses human methods," he said, even though the repair was perfect. "Human methods are not approved for critical systems. This could cause problems later." "But sir," Daiho said carefully, "the engine is working perfectly. All the diagnostic tests show green." "Tests show current status," Captain Vorthak replied coldly, "but human methods are unreliable. I am writing a formal report about unsafe repair procedures." Daiho felt his heart sink. A formal report could cost him his job. If he lost this position, his family would have to return to Earth. They would lose their chance for a better life. "Captain, please," Daiho said. "I have been doing this work for 3 months with no problems. How repair methods work?" Captain Vorthak stared at him with those cold yellow eyes. "Humans do not tell Zilani officers what works and what does not work. You will accept this report and learn from it. If you question my judgment again, you will be removed from this station." That night, Daiho told his family about what had happened. They all sat quietly around their small dinner table. The future they had hoped for seemed to be slipping away. "Maybe we should just keep quiet and do our work," Mirai said sadly. "Maybe if we do not cause any trouble, they will leave us alone." But Daiho was not sure that would work. It seemed like some of the aliens would never accept humans as equals, no matter how hard they worked or how well they behaved. The question was how long his family could endure this treatment before something had to change. Life on Nexus Station became harder for the Kim family as the weeks passed. The formal report that Captain Vorthak had written about Daiho was now in his permanent file. Other Zilani supervisors had seen it and started watching all the human workers more closely. They looked for any excuse to find problems with human work. Despite the pressure, Daiho continued to do excellent work. His repairs were always perfect and his engines ran better than before he worked on them. But the Zilani supervisors never acknowledged his success. They only waited for him to make a mistake. Mirai faced similar treatment in the hydroponics bay. Supervisor Yentl had become colder toward her after hearing about Daiho's report. The alien woman now checked Mirai's work multiple times each day, looking for errors that were not there. Human carelessness could kill these plants, Supervisor Yentl said one day while examining Mirai's perfectly healthy vegetable garden. I must watch you more carefully. But it was Jinho who faced the worst treatment. After the complaints from Zelani parents, the school had made unofficial changes. Human children were not formally separated, but they were often excluded from group activities. Teachers paired alien children together for projects and left human kids to work alone. Jinho's friendship with Krex had ended after his father's intervention. The young Zelani boy now ignored Jinho completely. When they passed in the hallways, Krex would look away. This hurt Jinho deeply because Krex had been his best friend. The other human children at school were having similar problems. They ate lunch together at tables in the corner of the cafeteria. Alien children were not forbidden from joining them, but social pressure kept the species apart. One afternoon, Mirai went to pick up Jinho from school as she did every day. She arrived a few minutes early and waited outside the main building with other parents. Most of the other parents were aliens who talked among themselves but ignored the few humans present. Today was different, though. A group of off-duty Zelani guards had gathered near the school entrance. There were 5 of them, all wearing their armor even though they were not on duty. This was unusual because guards normally stayed in the security districts. The leader of the group was Sergeant Thraken. He was younger than Captain Vorthak, but just as hostile toward humans. His armor was newer and shinier, and he wore it like he was proud of how scary he looked. Thraken had a reputation for being harsh with anyone he saw as inferior. Too many humans on this station, Sergeant Thraken said loudly so everyone could hear. They take jobs from better species. They do not belong here. The other guards laughed and agreed with him. Some of the alien parents nearby nodded their heads. A few looked uncomfortable but did not say anything against the guards. Mirai tried to ignore the comments and focused on watching for Jinho to come out of school. But Sergeant Thraken noticed her standing there. Look at this human female, he said to his friends. She thinks she belongs here with real parents. Mirai felt her face get hot, but she knew better than to respond. Arguing with Zelani guards would only make things worse for her family. She moved a little further away from the group and continued waiting. When the school doors opened, children of many species came running out. They were laughing and playing as they ran to find their parents. Jinho came out with some of the other human children. He saw his mother and started walking toward her. Jinho, she called to him and waved. But Sergeant Thraken heard her call and saw the human boy approaching. For some reason, this made him angry. These human children are too loud and disrespectful, he announced to his friends. Look how they run around like wild animals. Their parents do not teach them proper behavior. Jinho had not been running or making noise. He was walking normally toward his mother like he did every day. But Sergeant Thraken seemed determined to find fault with something. You, human boy, Sergeant Thraken called out to Jinho. Come here. Jinho stopped walking and looked scared. He looked at his mother for guidance. Mirai stepped forward to protect her son. There is no problem, sir, Mirai said politely. We are just going home. I will decide if there is a problem, Sergeant Thraken said angrily. This boy was running and disturbing other children. He needs to learn respect for authority. This was not true. Everyone who had been watching could see that Jinho had done nothing wrong. But none of the alien witnesses spoke up to defend him. The other Zelani guards supported their sergeant and the alien parents did not want to get involved. Please, sir, Mirai said, trying to keep her voice calm. My son did nothing wrong. We will go home now and not cause any trouble. You do not tell me what your son did or did not do, Sergeant Thraken said, stepping closer to them. I saw him misbehaving. He will be punished for it. Mirai moved between the guard and her son. Her protective instincts were telling her to get Jinho away from this dangerous situation. But she also knew that running away could make things much worse. What kind of punishment? She asked, hoping to find a way to end this peacefully. The boy will spend 1 hour in detention with station security, Sergeant Thraken announced. This will teach him proper respect, Jinho started crying. He was only 8 years old and did not understand why this scary alien wanted to punish him. He had not done anything wrong and now he was in trouble with the station guards. Please do not take my son, Mirai begged. He is just a child. If there was a problem, I will make sure it does not happen again. But Sergeant Thraken seemed to enjoy having power over them. He smiled in a way that was not friendly at all. Human parents do not know how to raise children properly, he said. That is why Zilani authority must step in. The boy comes with us. The other guards moved closer to surround Mirai and Jinho. They were all much bigger than any human, and their armor made them look even more frightening. Some of the alien parents watching started to look worried, but still no one spoke up. Mama, Jinho cried, reaching for his mother. Mirai grabbed her son's hand and held it tightly. She was not going to let these bullies take her child away for punishment he did not deserve. No, she said firmly. You cannot take my son. He did nothing wrong. Sergeant Thracken's face became angry at being refused. In his mind, humans were supposed to obey Zilani orders without question. This human female was challenging his authority in front of witnesses. You resist lawful orders, he said in a threatening voice. This makes the situation much worse for both of you. The other guards moved even closer. One of them put his hand on the weapon attached to his armor. The message was clear. Cooperate or face worse consequences. But Mirai was a mother protecting her child. She was scared, but she was not going to give up her son to these bullies. Help us, she called out to the other parents nearby. Someone please help us. But the alien parents looked away. They did not want to get involved in a confrontation with station security. Even if they thought the guards were wrong, challenging them could bring trouble to their own families. At that moment, human workers were finishing their shifts and starting to walk through the education district on their way home. Some of them noticed the commotion near the school. They saw a human woman and child surrounded by armed Zilani. Guards among the workers walking. Home was Daeho Kim. He had finished his shift in the maintenance. Bayan was coming to meet his family at school like he sometimes did. When he saw what was happening, his blood turned cold. His wife and son were in trouble and no one was helping them. Daeho Kim pushed through the crowd of human workers who had stopped to watch the confrontation. His heart was beating fast as he saw his wife and son surrounded by 5 armed Zilani guards. The biggest guard, Sergeant Thrackan, was reaching toward Jinho while the boy cried and tried to hide behind his mother. What is happening here? Daeho called out as he approached the group. Sergeant Thrackan turned to face him. The Zilani guard was annoyed that another human was getting involved in his business. Your son was misbehaving and disturbing other children, Sergeant Thrackan said coldly. He will come with us for proper discipline. Your female refuses to cooperate. Daeho looked around at the scene. He could see other parents and children watching from a distance. None of them looked like there had been any disturbance. His son was clearly scared and had done nothing wrong. What exactly did he do? Daeho asked, trying to keep his voice calm. Do not question my authority, Sergeant Thrackan replied angrily. Human workers do not interrogate station security. Your son broke rules and will be punished. Daeho felt anger growing inside him, but he knew he had to be careful. Challenging Zilani guards could cost him his job and get his family sent back to Earth, but he also could not let them take his innocent son. Sir, perhaps there was a misunderstanding, Daeho said politely. My son is a good boy. If he accidentally caused a problem, I apologize. We can discuss appropriate consequences. Sergeant Thrackan laughed, but it was not a pleasant sound. Humans do not negotiate with Zilani authority. The boy comes with us now. If you interfere, you will also be arrested. The other guards moved to surround the family completely. Their hands moved closer to their weapons. The situation was getting more dangerous by the moment. Mirai looked at her husband with frightened eyes. She was still holding Jinho's hand tightly, but she did not know how much longer she could protect him from these armed guards. Papa, help me, Jinho whispered through his tears. Those words hit Daeho like a physical blow. His son was asking for protection, and the law said he should just stand aside and let it happen. But every instinct in his body was telling him to defend his child. Please, Sergeant, Daeho said, trying one more time to resolve this peacefully. Let me take my family home. I promise there will be no more problems. The time for discussion is over, Sergeant Thrackan declared. He reached out with his armored hand to grab Jinho's arm. No, Mirai said, pulling her son away from the guard's reach. This defiance made Sergeant Thrackan very angry. In his experience, humans always submitted to Zilani authority when confronted. These 2 humans were showing disrespect in front of witnesses, and that could not be allowed to continue. Enough, Sergeant Thrackan growled. He pushed Mirai hard with his armored hand, sending her stumbling backwards. Jinho screamed as he lost hold of his mother's hand. The 8-year-old boy was now alone and defenseless in front of the huge Zilani guard. Sergeant Thrackan grabbed Jinho by the arm and lifted him off the ground. The boy's feet dangled in the air as the guard held him up to eye level. "Human children must learn respect," Sergeant Thrackan said loudly so everyone could hear. "This one will serve as an example to others." Jinho was crying and trying to get free, but the guard's grip was too strong. The armored fingers were squeezing the boy's small arm so tightly that it was starting to bruise. "Please, you are hurting him," Mirai begged as she got back to her feet. But Sergeant Thrackan was enjoying his power over the helpless family. He had complete authority here, and these humans could do nothing to stop him. "Pain teaches lessons," he said with a cruel smile. "Maybe now this human child will learn proper behavior." When Jinho continued crying and begging to be let go, Sergeant Thrackan became even more angry. "Quiet," he shouted at the boy. "Your crying disturbs everyone. You will be silent." But Jinho was too scared and hurt to stop crying. He was just a little boy who wanted his parents to save him from this nightmare. Sergeant Thrackan had decided that the boy needed to be taught a stronger lesson. He drew back his free hand and struck Jinho across the face with his armored knuckles. The blow was hard enough to snap the child's head to the side. Blood started running from Jinho's nose and mouth. The 8-year-old boy went limp in the guard's grip, stunned by the violence. "That is better," Sergeant Thrackan said with satisfaction. "Now you are quiet." But the sight of his son's bloodied face changed everything for Daeho Kim. Something deep and primitive awakened in his mind. Something that had been sleeping since humans lived in caves and fought wild animals with rocks and sticks. The watching humans gasped in horror at seeing a child struck so brutally. Even some of the alien parents looked disturbed by the unnecessary violence. But no one moved to help. Sergeant Thrackan was not finished with his lesson. He pulled out his weapon, an energy device that could stun or kill depending on its setting. "This human child has learned one lesson today," he announced to the crowd. "But he needs to learn more. Disrupting station order is a serious crime." He pointed the weapon at the barely conscious boy in his other hand. The threat was clear. He was prepared to hurt Jinho even more severely. Mirai screamed and tried to reach her son, but the other guards blocked her way. "Stop," she begged. "Please stop. He is just a baby." But Sergeant Thrackan was drunk on his own power. He had complete authority over these humans, and he wanted everyone to see it. "Human children who cannot behave will be removed from this station permanently," he said, adjusting the setting on his weapon. That was the moment when Daeho Kim stopped being a careful, law-abiding worker trying to build a better life for his family. In that instant, he became something much older and more dangerous. A human father whose child was being threatened by a predator. Every human in the crowd felt it too. They had been watching in helpless horror as one of their children was brutalized. Their own protective instincts were starting to wake up. The Zilani guards noticed the change in atmosphere. The humans had stopped looking afraid and started looking angry. Very angry. Sergeant Thrackan sensed the shift in mood, but he was not worried. He had armor and weapons. These humans were just maintenance workers and farmers. What could they possibly do against trained Zilani warriors? He was about to find out something about human beings that the Galactic Federation had never bothered to study. When humans decide that they have nothing left to lose, they become the most dangerous creatures in the known galaxy. Daeho Kim looked at his son's bloody face and unconscious body, hanging from the guard's armored fist. He looked at the weapon pointed at his child's head. He looked at his wife crying and begging for mercy that would never come. Then Daeho stopped thinking like a civilized person and started thinking like what he really was. A member of the most successful predator species that had ever evolved on any planet in the galaxy. The killing was about to begin. What happened next took less than 3 seconds, but it changed everything on Nexus Station forever. Daeho Kim moved faster than anyone thought a human could move. Years of physical labor had kept his muscles strong and his reflexes sharp. But it was not just strength that drove him now. It was something much deeper and more powerful than any training the Zilani guards had ever received. It was the fury of a human parent protecting his child. Sergeant Thrackan never saw the attack coming. One moment he was holding a weapon pointed at a helpless human boy. The next moment pain exploded through his body as Daeho's fist crushed the bones in his weapon hand. The energy weapon fell to the ground, broken and useless. Sergeant Thrackan screamed in surprise and pain, but his scream was cut short as Daeho's second punch shattered his armored chestplate. The Zilani guard was supposed to be a superior warrior, His armor was designed to stop energy weapons and projectiles. His training had prepared him to fight other armed soldiers, but nothing had prepared him for the raw, savage violence of an enraged human father. Deho's third and final strike drove through Sergeant Thrakon's skull with the force of a hammer hitting an egg. The supposedly invincible Zelani warrior dropped dead instantly, his grip releasing Jinho, who fell to the ground. The entire confrontation lasted less than 3 seconds. In that time, a human maintenance worker had killed one of the station's elite guards with his bare hands. Absolute silence fell over the education district. Everyone who had been watching stood frozen in shock. The other 4 Zelani guards stared at their dead comrade in disbelief. The alien parents gasped and stepped backward. Even the human workers looked stunned by the sudden, overwhelming violence. Captain Vorthak had arrived just in time to witness his sergeant's death. The senior Zelani officer pushed through the crowd, expecting to find some kind of accident or equipment malfunction. Instead, he found a human standing over the corpse of one of his best guards. "What happened here?" Captain Vorthak demanded, his voice shaking with rage and disbelief. Deho knelt down and gently picked up his unconscious son. Blood was still flowing from Jinho's nose and mouth where the guard had struck him. The boy was breathing but had not woken up yet. "He hurt my son," Deho said simply, as if that explained everything, and in a way it did explain everything. Every human parent in the crowd understood perfectly. Every human worker who saw the scene knew they would have done exactly the same thing in Deho's position. Captain Vorthak looked at the body of Sergeant Thrakon. The guard's head was caved in from the force of the human's blow. The chest armor that was supposed to protect against energy weapons had been cracked like plastic. "You killed a Zelani officer," Captain Vorthak said, his yellow eyes burning with fury. "You will be executed for this crime, will I?" Deho asked, still holding his injured son. There was something in the human's voice that made Captain Vorthak pause. It was not fear or regret. It was something else. Something that sounded almost like a challenge. The other human workers were moving closer now. They formed a loose circle around Deho and his family. Their faces showed the same expression that Deho's had shown just before he killed Sergeant Thrakon. Captain Vorthak suddenly realized that the situation was much more dangerous than he had first thought. There were more than 20 human workers here, and they all looked like they were ready to fight. "Stand down," he ordered the humans. "Return to your quarters immediately or you will all be arrested." But none of the humans moved away. If anything, they moved closer together. They had just seen one of their children brutally beaten by station security. They had watched a human father defend his family the only way he could, and they were not going to let Captain Vorthak punish him for it. "The boy did nothing wrong," said Jong-Soo Park, one of the other human engineers. "That guard attacked a child for no reason." "The human child was disturbing order," Captain Vorthak replied. Sergeant Thrakon was enforcing station regulations. "By beating an 8-year-old boy?" asked Sun-Hee Lee, a human woman who worked in the hydroponics bay with Mireille. "By pointing a weapon at a child's head?" Captain Vorthak looked around at the alien witnesses. He expected them to support his version of events. But many of the alien parents looked uncomfortable. They had seen what really happened, and they knew the human child had done nothing to deserve such treatment. "Zelani authority is not questioned by inferior species," Captain Vorthak declared, but his voice sounded less certain than before. "Inferior?" asked Deho, still holding his son. "Your superior warrior is dead on the ground. I killed him with my hands. How does that make me inferior?" This was a question that Captain Vorthak could not answer easily. Zelani society was based on the idea that they were natural warriors, superior to other species in combat. But a human civilian had just killed one of their trained guards without weapons or armor. The remaining Zelani guards were looking nervous. They had seen how quickly and easily their sergeant had died. They were starting to wonder if humans might be more dangerous than anyone had realized. Station security cameras had recorded the entire incident. The footage would show clearly that Sergeant Thrakon had struck an innocent child and threatened him with a weapon. It would show that the human father had acted to protect his family from an armed aggressor. Under Federation law, parents had the right to defend their children from assault. The law applied to all species equally, even though it was rarely enforced when Zelani guards were involved. Captain Vorthak knew that he had a problem. If he arrested Deho now, he would have to explain why his guard had attacked a human child. He would have to justify why deadly force had been threatened against an 8-year-old boy. But he also could not let the death of a Zilani officer go unpunished. His authority and the authority of his entire species was at stake. "This human will be arrested and tried for murder," Captain Vorthak announced. "Killing a station officer is a capital crime regardless of circumstances." The human workers moved closer together. They were not going to let Daeho be taken without a fight. "Then you will have to arrest all of us," said Minju Chang, an older human woman who supervised one of the cafeterias, "because we all saw what really happened here." Other humans nodded in agreement. They were willing to stand together against station security if necessary. Captain Vorthak realized that he was facing something unprecedented. In 30 years of human membership in the Federation, nothing like this had ever happened. Humans had always been quiet and cooperative even when they were mistreated. But something had changed today. The humans on Nexus Station were no longer willing to accept abuse in silence. They had seen what could happen when they finally fought back, and they had learned something important about themselves. When pushed to their limit, humans were far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The dead body of Sergeant Thrakon was proof of that. The news of Sergeant Thrakon's death spread through Nexus Station within hours. By the next morning, reports had reached Federation headquarters on 12 different worlds. For the first time in galactic history, a human had killed a trained Zilani warrior in single combat. The immediate aftermath was chaos. Captain Vorthak had wanted to arrest Daeho immediately, but the human workers had surrounded the Kim family and refused to let station security take him. More humans had arrived as word spread, until nearly every human on the station was gathered in the education district. Station Administrator Kellex, a wise old Altani who had been running Nexus Station for 15 years, had arrived to take control of the situation. He ordered everyone to return to their homes while he investigated what had happened. The security footage told the complete story. It showed Sergeant Thrakon harassing an innocent human family. It showed him striking a young child and threatening the boy with a deadly weapon. It showed the human father acting to protect his son from an armed attacker. Under Federation law, Daeho's actions were justified. Any parent had the right to defend their child from assault with deadly weapons. The law was clear, even if it had never been applied in a case like this before. But the implications of what had happened went far beyond simple legal questions. Within days, Federation military analysts were reviewing the incident and asking difficult questions. How had a human civilian killed a trained Zilani guard so easily? Were humans more dangerous than their official species profile indicated? Emergency meetings were called on a dozen worlds. Representatives from various species gathered to discuss what they called the human problem. For 30 years, they had thought of humans as a junior partner species, grateful for the opportunity to join galactic civilization. Now they were forced to consider the possibility that they had seriously underestimated humanity's capabilities. Research. Teams were dispatched to study human history more carefully. What they found disturbed many of the Federation's leaders. Humans had conquered every environment on their home planet. They had survived ice ages, plagues, and countless wars. They had climbed to the top of their world's food chain despite being smaller and weaker than many of their planet's predators. Most importantly, humans had done all of this while developing one of the strongest protective instincts for their young that had ever been documented. The research revealed that human parents would fight to the death to protect their children, regardless of the odds against them. This was not just cultural behavior, but biological programming that had been shaped by millions of years of evolution. On Nexus Station, the dynamics between species had changed completely. The Zilani guards who had once acted with casual arrogance toward humans now treated them with wary respect. They had seen what could happen when they pushed too far. Captain Vorthak had been removed from his position and reassigned to duties that did not involve contact with human families. The official report blamed him for allowing his subordinates to use excessive force against station residents. Daeho Kim was not arrested. After 3 days of investigation and legal review, Station Administrator Kellex announced that no charges would be filed. The human father had acted within his rights under Federation law to protect his child from assault. But the aftermath was complicated for the Kim family. Some aliens viewed Daeho as a dangerous criminal who had escaped justice. Others saw him as someone who had stood up against bullying and abuse. The human community on the station treated him as a hero, but he did not feel like one. "I just wanted to protect my son," Daeho told his wife as they sat in their quarters 3 weeks after the incident. "I never wanted to kill anyone." Jinho had recovered from his injuries, though he still had nightmares about the day he was attacked. The boy had become something of a symbol throughout human space. His picture had been transmitted to Earth and other human colonies, along with the story of how his father had defended him. Human parents across the galaxy felt a deep connection to the Kim family's experience. They understood that it could have been their child who was threatened, their family that was targeted for abuse. The incident had also revealed something troubling about life for humans in Federation space. Reports began coming in from other stations and colonies where human families had faced similar mistreatment. For years, humans had endured discrimination and abuse in silence because they feared losing their opportunities for advancement. Now, encouraged by what had happened on Nexus Station, human workers began speaking out about their experiences. They filed formal complaints about unfair treatment. They demanded equal protection under Federation law. The Federation Council was forced to acknowledge that there had been systematic problems in how humans were treated throughout their territory. New regulations were passed requiring equal treatment for all species. Training programs were established to educate alien supervisors about human rights and capabilities. But the most important change was in how other species viewed humanity itself. The casual assumption that humans were weak and primitive had been shattered by 3 seconds of violence in a school. District military leaders throughout the Federation began reviewing their assessments of human capabilities. If human civilians could kill trained warriors, what might human soldiers be capable of? Earth's military had always seemed small and primitive compared to the vast fleets of older species. Now, Federation strategists wondered if they had been measuring the wrong things. On Earth, the news of the incident was met with mixed reactions. Some humans were proud that one of their own had stood up to alien bullies. Others worried that it might damage humanity's relationship with the Federation and cost them access to advanced technology and opportunities. But most human parents simply understood. They knew that any one of them would have done exactly what Daeho Kim had done to protect their child. 6 months after the incident, life on Nexus Station had settled into a new normal. Humans were no longer treated as second-class residents. Zilani guards were polite and professional in their interactions with human families. The school had implemented new policies ensuring equal treatment for children of all species. Jinho Kim returned to school and made new friends among both human and alien children. Some of the alien parents who had watched his assault now made efforts to include human families in community activities. They had learned that treating humans badly could have serious consequences. Daeho continued his work in the maintenance bay, where his skills were now openly acknowledged and respected. He had been promoted to senior engineer and given responsibility for training other workers. His methods, once dismissed as inferior human techniques, were now studied and adopted by engineers from other species. Mirai had been promoted as well, and now supervised an entire section of the hydroponics bay. The plants under her care grew better than ever before, and alien supervisors sought her advice on difficult cultivation problems. The Kim family had achieved the better life they had come to space seeking. But the cost had been higher than they ever expected to pay. Late at night, when his family was asleep, Daeho sometimes looked out their apartment window at the stars. He thought about the guard he had killed and wondered if there could have been another way to save his son. He thought about how quickly civilization could disappear when a parent's child was threatened. He also thought about the reports coming in from across Federation space. Humans everywhere were being treated with new respect, but also with new wariness. Other species had learned that humanity was far more dangerous than anyone had realized. The galaxy had changed because of what happened in those 3 seconds outside a school on Nexus Station. The Federation's understanding of humanity had been rewritten by the actions of a father protecting his child. Whether that change would ultimately be good or bad for the human race remained to be seen. But one thing was certain: no one would ever again make the mistake of thinking that humans would accept abuse of their children without consequences. The protective fury of human parents had become a force that the galaxy would have to respect and fear, and every alien who had witnessed what happened to Sergeant Thrakon would carry that lesson with them for the rest of their lives. In the end, the incident had revealed a fundamental truth about humanity that the Federation had failed to understand. Humans might be newcomers to galactic civilization, but they were the children of the most successful predators their world had ever produced. And predators, when protecting their young, were the most dangerous creatures in the universe.